So speaking of feeling, you felt that your time had come. You had created something that was repeatable, predictable, and ultimately scalable, and that the kind of the shininess, the attractiveness, the creativity, the innovation had gone out of it. I mean, ultimately, a successful scaling business is a boring business because you've created the recipe. You
Yeah.
created the recipe for scaling here. Did you take some money off the table back in 2017, or did you was that entirely invested into the business?
Nope, I took money off the table in 17 and in 21, the two big rounds that I did. And now I will say I was planning to sell Solidcore in 2020. We had hired bankers, end of February, and obviously, the trajectory of that changed because of COVID, which is fine. I've got there's a lot of tragedy that happened in COVID, so I'm not disregarding that by any means, but for my own personal leadership and lessons from a business perspective that I learned, I'm eternally grateful, and no one could have ever, no one ever plans for your revenue to go to zero and you're going to have to shut everything down. It just wasn't part of anybody's, forecasting. So I learned a ton during that. But yes, I took money off the table in 17. I owned enough equity. And this is the thing too, for people who are raising money, I didn't just be like, oh, I want to take money off the table. I understood how much equity I had. I understood how much I was going to be diluted by. I understood that by putting back then we put 12 million in the company, and that 12 million I was going to get to 100 studios with the 12 million and the profits from the 25 studios and the studios that we were going to open, and the calculations were right. We were going to be at 100 studios by end of 2020, which was when I was planning, to sell. Obviously, things changed. We had to raise money again in 2021. Um, and in 2021, we raised a $50 million round. Most of that secondary, meaning most of it went to investors, me included, our other private equity partner. And I think we put another 12 in the business then. And we started playing offense, Brendan. Again, I don't know how COVID was handled in Ireland, but in the States, it was all the states had local jurisdiction. So we were in 20 plus states at that time. And it was very different of how you could operate in Florida, which is a red state, versus New York, which is a blue state. The blue states were very strict. We had to be shut down a lot longer, and they weren't letting us do anything. And so we said, okay, we're gonna raise money and we're gonna start opening in red states, which are Republican leaning states. And we were able to open 11 studios in 2021 when most people were just barely getting their old operations up and running. But because we were well capitalized, we started playing offense, and we really did become the prominent player in the boutique space after that. And a lot of people watched what we were doing. We got back to pre-COVID numbers really by like beginning-ish first or second quarter of 2022. People were coming back in droves. We were smart enough to all realize this is a moment in time. COVID is not going to be this way forever. And we're going to, again, take the opportunity where most people are fearful, we're going to go win. And so because we were covered so quickly, there was an opportunity that I was ready. I had promoted my COO to CEO after COVID in like May of 2021. I had been ready for a long time to transition into executive chair role because again, we had so many studios across the country. So I moved into that role, stepped out of the day-to-day operations of the business. Um, and then in 2023, end of April, early May, we had an opportunity for me, particularly, I was ready to be done to sell all of my shares to a new private equity firm coming in. Um, and because I had succession planned, system and processes were in place. We had shown we know how to really are responsible around financial management. Our unit economics were amazing. And we showed that wasn't founder dependent anymore. I got to call all the shots on that deal. And one thing I love sharing is that I wasn't even in that deal. Like when the private equity firm was coming and, going and looking at Solidcore and meeting with all the people, I wasn't in one of those meetings. And I'm like, if that just tells you everything you need to know, because the private equity firm was buying the new leadership team. And if I would have had to been in there and I'm the one speaking and I'm talking and it looks like I'm still running the business, they say, okay, and we'll buy the company, but you're coming with. So that was really important to show that this place is running without me. And so when I got to make the call and set the number, and got, another $10 million dollars beyond what my shares were worth, was simply because I had all the leverage. And I could have told them, they didn't want to pay that, but I'm like, listen, you can either pay an extra $10 million dollars now, or we'll wait 6 months. We'll run another competitive process. We're opening another 15 studios during that time frame, and you can end up paying more for the business, or you could get outbid by someone else. And because I had taken money off the table, Brendan, and I always advise to founders of like, don't be a starving founder running toward your exit, because you'll sell for way less than the business is worth. You will feel like, X amount of money feels like a lot because you've never had a taste of it before, and you'll make a bad deal. And I just was in a position where I didn't have to take that money at that point. I could be as patient, and I wasn't going to sell without reaching my $100 million number.
And I don't know if you fully appreciate just how much wisdom there is in all of this. You probably do now, given the journey that you've been on. But to understand this, both from a psychological perspective and from a financial and commercial and strategic perspective, I don't know if I've met someone so acutely tuned in, and in a process like that, how your ego didn't get in the way of actually wanting to be the person associated with this, to be leading this, to have all of these private equity investors kind of at your back and call, for you to step aside from that process, to showcase the fact that actually this business is independent of me, and by virtue of the fact it's independent of me, there's so much more value in it. That's really unique and very, very special. And I think